Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts, and we keep finding new places that people are listening and watching their podcasts. So we're trying to track it down. I keep meeting people all the time from diverse places in the world who are telling me how they listen to my podcast. So, I don't know how we track them all down, but wherever you are, on land and to all the ships on sea, welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And we have a sponsor this week, a return sponsor. It is sponsored anonymously to spread the word about dailygiving.org. Now, I spoke about dailygiving.org. Must have been about 8 episodes again. And we showed the video featuring all of the most important people in Klal Yisrael and excluding me. Not that I mind, don't get me wrong. I'm very happy to instead have someone sponsor my show to talk about it rather than me just talking on some video with a bunch of other people. Why should I be in with the rest of all of the famous speakers and leaders of Klal Yisrael when I've got my own show? In any event, evidently the response from my listeners was profound and dramatic, and a whole bunch of people signed up also to the point that they are sponsoring again. And they didn't even write a text this time. They said, you just talk about it. Yeah. And they urge you to go back to episode 144 and watch the video again. I myself have watched it several times, and I keep asking myself, why am I not in that? But it's really very moving and very emotional. And the concept is that you sign up and give $1 a day, and it's given out to needy causes. And it's all transparent. You can see where the money goes. There's no... And I got to tell you a story, because this will come as a surprise to many of you, but sometimes I get myself caught in controversies. I know, it seems so amazing because I'm such an easygoing person without any opinions whatsoever. How could I possibly find myself in a controversial position? Now, sometimes I find myself in situations that I didn't even know about. I find out afterwards that somehow I stumbled on a landmine and people are upset at me for something. But very often I even have no idea about it. But I was invited once to a city, I won't mention where, to speak on behalf of a tzedakah. And the tzedakah advertises the fact that they don't keep any of the money that they raise for any administrative costs. In fact, I was speaking at a Meleva Malka, and the entire Meleva Malka had been donated by outside people, so that the people who give their money know that it's going completely to tzedakah. So it turns out there's another tzedakah in this town, which does have overhead costs, and they do pay staff. And so they have a different slogan to try to get people to do it. And they called me up and told me that I should not speak for that tzedakah because they were attacking them. Why? Because since they have administrative costs, the very fact that they're advertising that they don't have administrative costs is really a backhanded slap at them. And I said, why? You advertise that your tzedakah is special for this reason. They don't do what you're saying, so you're attacking them just as much as they're attacking you. No, it's different because ours is true. But theirs is also true. Yes, but theirs is being used to attack us. Anyway, we went back and forth. After a while, I realized that we weren't getting any place with these emails. And but I did speak, and there was a very large turnout, and they seem to be doing very well because people find the idea of giving tzedakah very appealing. I do not mean to cast any aspersions on anybody, chas v'shalom, but it's pretty well known that mishulachim who are going around collecting for a particular tzedakah or a particular Mossad or institution keeps a percentage of the money. How much they keep is sometimes frightening if you ask about it. And these organizations figure, well, it's found money. We wouldn't have gotten this money anyway. So even if we get a small percentage of the money that the people are giving, it's good for us. But the people who are giving the money don't always realize how much of it the person who's collecting is keeping. So it's a little frightening. Anyway, dailygiving.org doesn't keep any of the money. Everything that is taken in is given out, and you can go and see where everything is from. It is, as the expression goes, more bang for your buck, so that you know that what you're giving, 100% of it is going out to tzedakah. And because they deal with so many different tzedakahs, it really gives you a chance to be able to be supporting so many different causes, which is so important. It says in Pirkei Avos, Hakol Lefi Rov HaMaisa. What does that mean, says the Bartanura? If you have a choice of giving $10 to one person or $1 to 10 people, give $1 to 10 people, because you're doing the Maisa Tzedakah 10 times. So here, your $1 is going to all kinds of different organizations and causes and important things in Klal Yisrael, so you know that you're hitting a lot of them. So I'll just read the last thing that he wrote over here. Sign up for a loved one as a daily schus for an aliyah, for a neshama, or for a shlema, or a schus to help find the shidduch, or to sign up for all of a person's children to teach them to give tzedakah. Also, very good idea. Late Rabbi Aaron Weiner, who lived in our community, and he was a builder, and he was building a shul, which Mitzvah Hashem, even though he did not make it to be able to see it dedicated, it was going to be dedicated Mitzvah Hashem soon. He worked very hard, but someone told me a story that when he lived in Chicago, so he told his children for their bar mitzvah money to pick tzedakahs to give it out to. You get to pick where you want to give it to, as opposed to just keeping it for yourself. I know the story is true because I met somebody from Chicago who was very upset about it. He says it puts a lot of pressure on the rest of us now that we can't keep our kids' bar mitzvah money. Be that as it may, it's something where if you tell your children, listen, this is a big schus to be able to participate together with all of Klal Yisrael. So there are 8,000 people now. He writes something that I'm not sure how to understand this line. Now, thanks in no small part to Rabbi Orlofsky, there are over 8,000 Jews giving $1 a day together. Now, I don't know how much of those 8,000 people we got from our podcast. But if it's in no small part because of me, well, that would be at least 2,000 to 3,000 people. So I urge the rest of you now to go out and sign up. It's a wonderful thing, and we should all participate. Okay. We're in the middle of talking about Tefila. And like I say, I don't know how long I'm going to go on, not because of anything other than the fact that one of the reasons people enjoy listening to me is because I have ADD. And since so many people today obviously suffer from this, they enjoy listening to my podcast because you're on a roller coaster. You're on an adventure. So sometimes I'm dealing with a series. I've dealt with different series, and I get emails from people like, can we talk about something else? Because I'm getting bored talking about the same thing. If I wanted to take a course on Tefila, I would have taken one. So I'm going to have to wind down at some point. But, I had a kid in one of my classes who also had ADD, and he told me a joke. He says, how many kids with ADD does it take to change a light bulb? I said, how many? He says, you want to ride my bike? And we both went, Anyway, so I know that I'm pressing the attention span. So I figured this week I might as well go for broke and actually work with a text. I'm sorry. But we're coming out of Hanukkah, and Hanukkah is, of course, Lahodos Lahalo. And as you know, there is a structure to the Shmona Esrei. I say Shmona Esrei because that's the term that the Gemara uses, even though there were actually 19 brachas. And we also say on Shabbos we daven Shmona Esrei, even though there were only 7 brachas. But that's the common usage. So, hey, sue me. Anyway, not that you'll get anything out of it. You know what I'm saying? Might provide you at least with some entertainment, you know. When the real estate market collapsed in 2008 and it brought down a lot of people, people asked me, were you hurt by it? And I said, no, everything that I was invested in was untouched because all of my investments consisted of my overdraft in the bank. And it didn't go away. It was right there, just where I left it. So I was prescient. I saw what was happening in the market, and I switched over there. If 20 years ago I would have put my money into Amazon, I'd be a very wealthy person today. So anyway, but that wasn't in the cards for me. But in any event, we're going to do a text. So you know, Shmona Esrei is set up that the first 3 brachas are shvach, the middle is bakosha, requests, and the end is hodah, giving thanks. So I want to use the bracha of modim. Now you remember I gave a suggestion to review a hodah, a good thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for you at the very beginning of Gomel Chasodim Tovim, and I do that because spacing out is always a difficulty for me, so I wanted to get it right at the beginning. So, but a lot of other people suggest doing it in modim, where it is more appropriate. I'm going to read this very quickly just to point out what struck me as a difficulty. I'm going to give you my approach that I think of when I do modim, but you'll see that it seems as if there's, I don't want to say so much repetition as much as almost a duality in the understanding of modim. We thank you. You are our God and the God of our fathers forever. See the 2 different things there? You are the rock of our life and the shield of our salvation. Every generation. We thank you. And we tell of your praise, your greatness. For the life that you put inside of us. And the neshama that you stored in us. You see how it's like 2 things? The miracles that you do every day. And the wonders and goodness that you do all the time. Hatov kilochalu rachamecha. You're good because you never stop your mercy. And you're merciful because you never stop your chesed me'olam kivinulach. We always hope for you. You're tov, you're good because you are rachem, you're merciful, and you're merciful because you do chesed. Flammable, inflammable, non-inflammable. Seems like we could have done that in 2 words. Yeah, the late George Carlin. So you say you're tov because you're rachem, and you're rachem because you're chesed. So just turn to chesed. Say you're tov because you do chesed. What do I need the rachem in the middle there for? Tov equals rachem. Rachem equals chesed. What's happening? V'al kulam yisparach v'yisramam. Bless and raise on high. Shem Chama Kevin Dovid. V'chol hachayim yoducha sela. Now notice the sela means there's a stop. And all living creatures thank you. V'yahalu es shimcha be'emes. Hakel Yeshua Seinu v'zvasenu sela. There's literally one phrase that has a sela that says yoducha, and another one that ends with sela that says v'yahalelu. Baruch Hashem hatov shimcha l'chonei Elohodos. Hatov shimcha, your name is good. U'l'chon no Elohodos, and to you it's appropriate. So what's going on over here? So I wanted to suggest, as you know, at the end of Al Hanisim, which by the way is put into the middle of this bracha that I just read you, it says, Kovo Shmonos Yemei Chanukah Elu, Lahodos Ulahalel, to thank and to praise. So those are two concepts. Lahodos is to thank, and to Hallel is to praise. So I'm suggesting that all of Modim is set up on two levels, Lahodos, Lahallel. Because there's two ways of looking at a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Al niflaisecha, on your wonders, v'al nisecha shebechol yom imanu, and the everyday miracles. The famous Beis Yosef's Kasha. If there was enough oil to burn for one day, so why do we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days? One day there was enough oil, so the miracle is only 7 days. A lot of answers to this question. But one answer is certainly pertinent to what we're discussing now. The first day we celebrate the fact that oil burns. Okay, isn't that natural? Yes, it is. Because there's two ways that a Kodesh Baruch Hu operates in this world, systematically and non-systematically. Not systematically is what we call a miracle. Systematically is what we call teva, what we call nature. But there is no nature. There's no ordinary when it comes to the world. We just take it for granted. So there was no oil to light for Shabbos, so he says, use vinegar. He says, does vinegar burn? Chanina ben Doisa said, just like a Kodesh Baruch Hu can make oil burn, he can make vinegar burn. The fact that the world works with laws of nature, that's also Dvar Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can run the world according to certain rules that are systematic, or he can change those around and run it in a way that's not systematic. But both are Kadosh Baruch Hu. The fact that oil burns or vinegar burns is just as big a miracle. And so on the first day of Hanukkah, yes, there was enough oil to burn. We're thanking Kadosh Baruch Hu, the fact that everything goes well. It's an amazing thing. We know this. When everything is going well, we don't think about it. We don't even think about it. We wake up in the morning. What's the first thing that we say? Modani lefanecha melech ha'ay v'kayam shechezarta bi nishmasi. Thank God I'm alive. It changes your whole day because, if you wake up and you're dead, it's a whole different day. Hard to go shopping. So we take it for granted. We wake up in the morning. Why do we take it for granted? People ask me all the time, and I see them and say, how you doing? I said, great. I said, really? I said, nothing to complain about. I said, nothing. I said, 7 years ago, I had a heart attack. The guy who did the angiogram, he was the head of the department in Shari Tzedek. He says, I don't know why you're alive. You're not getting enough blood to keep you alive. You should be dead. The surgeon who did the surgery said that my arteries had been dead for so long that they got reabsorbed inside of my heart. We had the head of the department, like every Jew. You only take the head of the hospital. Jackie Mason has a whole routine on this, So he says, He says, "Oh, my doctor takes a month to get an appointment." He says, "Oh, my doctor takes 6 months to get an appointment." He says, "My doctor hasn't seen a patient yet." Anyway, so we're the head of the department, and he said, "You're lucky it was me because you couldn't find the arteries, but I knew where they should be, so I was able to extract them from the heart in order to be able to bypass them. Anybody else, and he'd be dead." So 2 major doctors told me I should be dead. Apparently, I'm not. I think. Samuel Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, a newspaper printed his obituary, and he wrote in a letter saying, "Reports of my death have been highly exaggerated." But in any event, so so I wake up in the morning. As far as I'm concerned, I'm in overtime. I'm not even supposed to be here. When my wife gets upset about things, and I say, "Hey, listen, I was supposed to die 7 years ago. That would have been bad, right? Probably been worse than what we're going through now. So." Although after I'm dead, I told my wife, just get a cardboard cutout of me and sit in front of the computer. No one will even know that I'm gone. It'll take years till anybody even notices. And you can keep answering my emails, what I mean? It'll be fine. Nobody will know the difference. They'll say, "I don't know what happened. Rabbi Orlofsky's a lot more mellow than he used to be. He used to have more of an edge to him." That's because I have other people answering my email. Hard to come up with that same level of slight, sarcastic approach to life. But so every day is mamish a miracle. So sometimes you have mamish, you see what we would call a miracle. I met a guy who was in a plane crash. Everyone died except for him, which you call an obvious miracle, right? On the other hand, this person was almost in a car crash. He was supposed to take a bus. If he had taken that bus, the bus got into a crash before he died. He asked Rav Bick, he says, "Should I bench Gomel?" So he says, "Well, my trousers were hanging on the line and they fell. I was 6 stories up. If I had been inside of them, I would have died. Do I bench Gomel?" But listen, these kind of things happen in the life of a person all the time. We don't take it. We take it for granted. So we wake up in the morning, we say, "Baruch Hashem, I'm alive." Then we open our eyes, we say, "Thank God we can see." We sit up, "Thank God I'm not paralyzed." We stand up, "Thank God I can walk." Thank God I got clothes to wear. The things that we take for granted, we sit down and count our blessings quite literally. The everyday miracles. So Lahodas Lahalel is a double message. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything that we have in our life, but we also praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu for those unusual chasodim that we get, because there's 2 different types. And first we explain that's the difference between Hanukkah and Purim. Hanukkah and Purim is that Purim, there was no open miracle. Everything that happened there was political intrigue. And by Hanukkah, there were open miracles. Few people were able to defeat the mighty Greek army. The menorah burnt for 8 days. We had real open miracles. And that's why on Hanukkah, we spin the dreidel because the hand is on the top. But on Purim, we use the garaga because the garaga hand is on the bottom. It's underneath. But both of them are Kadosh Baruch Hu working. It's just one's systematic and one's not systematic. So what do we say? Tzur chayenu, that's normal. You put life inside of me. Mogain yishenu, you're my shield and you save me when things go wrong. Nodelecha, I thank you. Unisapet ilosecha, and I will tell about your praises, the great things that you do outside of the ordinary. Al chayenu hamasurim biyodecha, that's our life that we understand. V'al nishmaseinu abakudos lach, and the neshama inside of us, which is something much more miraculous, that we have this unbelievable neshama. Al nisecha shechol yom imanu, everyday miracles. And the unusual, miraculous things you do. Now, this was the phrase that started me on this journey. Hatov kilo cholu rachamecha v'amrachem kilo samu chasadecha. You're good because you're rachem. Now, what does that mean by you're good because you're rachem? Right? Because Baruch Hu created the world as good. That was the best thing. And he decided the way to do it the best was to create a world of din. Because then you can earn everything that you get. But the world can't exist with just din. And so he added in rachamim. But din and rachamim are part of the same system. If you want to get mercy, you have to have a basis for mercy. Famous example they give is a kid who killed his parents and then throws himself on the mercy of the court because he's an orphan. Mercy has to have some basis for it, yeah, in order to work with din and rachamim. Chesed is related to chen, which is bechinam, for nothing, just because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do chesed. And that's why Rosh Hashanah is din and rachamim, but when we move to Yom Kippur, that's chesed v'chein. That's just for nothing. Hatoiv kilo chalu rachamecha. You're good because you created a world based on din and rachamim. And that's the normal functioning of the world. But if that doesn't work, then your rachmanis brings in chesed to allow us, even when we don't deserve it, to be able to survive. V'alkulam yisbarach v'yisramam. Baruch, praise. A bracha is a type of recognition of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goodness. V'yisromaim, and we raise you up high, outside of the normal functioning of the world. V'kol hachayim yoducha sela. Everybody who's alive, just because of the fact that they're alive, thank you, haidah. V'yahalu eshimcha be'emes hakel yeshuaseinu. But the Hallel comes about, why? Because of your Yeshuas. Hato shimcha ulechono elahodos. So these are the two approaches to life when we look at what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu when we light vinegar and it burns miraculously. But the same level, we have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu when we light a oil and it burns. And therefore, in the Hanukkah story, yes, they were very happy for the 7 days that it burnt when it shouldn't have burnt. But they were just as happy for the first day when it burnt when it was supposed to burn, when things work normally. And what a sad thing. I don't know how many people appreciate what they have in their life. Only when they lose it do they start to appreciate it. You hear stories of people who lose their eyesight, then they get it back, and how thankful they are. Well, yeah, it's the same thing you had before. Yeah, but when I lost it, then I appreciated it. Isn't that sad? Do we have to lose something in order to be able to appreciate it? If we appreciate it the first time, then we don't have to feel bad about it. We don't have to be upset that we lost it. We have it now. Enjoy it while you have it. And the more time that you spend appreciating what you do have, then the less situations you find yourself in where now I have to come up with some kind of a miraculous solution. And I can be happy just for everything that I have in my life. Mirza Hashem, lahodos lahalel, we're coming out of Hanukkah, that's supposed to give us the energy to carry us into the next Yom Tovim that we come to. So the more that we appreciate, yes, the miraculous salvations that take place, but the more that a person who studies the digestive system and realizes how much goes into being able for your body to function normally. I met a young lady whose father was a doctor, And she said, he just got a kidney transplant. I said, I didn't know that he was having problems. He goes, yes, because he was a doctor, so he was always in the hospital anyway. And so he would just go in for his dialysis. But now he has a kidney. I said, it must be something when he makes the bracha asher yotzar that you make when you come out of the bathroom. And she says, it's inspirational to watch. So something to think about when we look at the everyday miracles in our life. So now we come to the part of the show where we answer your questions. And I have to say, when we started this, we had a few questions, and now there's an outpouring. I don't know how many of them we're going to get to at any one time. There's so many. So I'm just reading the list that is in front of me now, not in any particular order. So the first question is, why don't we hear the producer laughing during the podcast? Because of tremendous self-control. That's why. If you will go back and watch the interview with McCall, you'll see how hard he works to be able to make this show of that tremendous caliber. And so sometimes he is laughing into his sleeve just to be able to keep that professionalism. When we have more of a audience, so then we do it. But he doesn't want to be the only one laughing. It doesn't look professional. What does the Malpighian tubules do in the grasshopper? Obviously, people have heard me make reference to this as to worthless information that we learn in school that has nothing to do with anything. But first of all, my producer pointed out that it's actually supposed to be pronounced as Malpighian tubules. I remember when I went to school, we called them Malpighian tubules, but it could be that my teacher didn't know how to pronounce it either, so I'm not sure. They are involved in the excretory system of the grasshopper, part of its digestive system, and works like the kidneys and cleans out the wastes. It's just interesting, since we finished talking about the bracha of Asher Yotzar, that we just happened to have this question come up. What is Rabbi Orlofsky's middle name? Like all things, that's a story. I came from a generation where my parents gave English names to match the Hebrew names. So, for example, my brother was named Gedalia Label, so my parents named him Gary Lester. Today, you can be charged with child abuse, naming your kid Lester. But it didn't make a difference because they needed, so someone said to me, was that the only L name they can come up with? I said, I guess the alternative was to call him Gary Larry, but I guess they decided not to go with that one. But so my youngest brother, who is Bended Avram, they named him Bruce Adam, right? Because the English names have to match the Hebrew names. So when I started in the Hebrew Academy of Nassau County at the age of 5, in first grade, I was advanced, of course. So I started at the age of 5. So they said, what's your name? I said, David Howard. So they said, oh, it must be Dovid Tzvi. I didn't understand my parents' naming system, or I knew for sure it wouldn't be Tzvi if they named me Howard, but what did I know? So they called me Dovid Tzvi. I got called up to my bar mitzvah, Dovid Tzvi ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen, and for years. And at some point, we were in shul. I don't know how old I was, and my father said, "Who's Tzvi?" I said, "I am." He says, "Your name is Hirsch. That's why we named you Howard." Well, it makes a lot more sense. Now, postscript, I didn't know this at the time, but as I went through my family tree as best as I could, I found that a lot of the names came from my father's mother's side, the Dubners. And sure enough, there was a Hirsch, and there was a Gedalia, there was a Label. There were different names that were in our family that I found over there. So I realized, okay, he's probably right. So I went to Scheinberg, And he says to me, Tzvi Hirsch is the same name. So just become David Tzvi Hirsch. And so I became David Tzvi Hirsch ben Moshe Yehuda Cohen, which is quite a mouthful. About a year before he died, we were in shul, and my father says, "Who's Tzvi Hirsch?" I said, "I am, Dad." He says, "Your name is Herschel." I said, "There is no more room on the towels bag. Just forget it. Just let it go." So Herschel is obviously Hirsch. It became it's such an interesting thing. My oldest brother, my father named him Yeshia for my mother's father was Yeshia. Now, a quick trip to the Beis HaKvaris, which again is difficult for us because we're Kohanim, but a quick trip, you would look at my grandfather's Matseva and see that his name was Yeshayahu. So they obviously made it Yeshia. You can see sometimes people say Shia or Shaya for Yeshayahu. So they said Yeshia. So when he started in Hebrew school, they decided it was Yehoshua. So he became Yehoshua. But it wasn't the name. You have to look into where these names come from. It's really, really very interesting. So what is my middle name? Yeah, such a simple question and such a long story. What is your favorite book? My favorite book is Chumash, particularly with Rashi's Parish. I enjoy that very much. It's very enjoyable reading. I don't think that was the kavana of the person who's writing. I assume they're asking outside of Torah works. So what would I consider the best? Not a big fan of from fiction. There are exceptions. There's certain books I've read that were absolutely brilliant, but a lot of them not only are trite, which I can forgive, but sometimes they actually have anti-Torah values. So I'm not going to cite any examples now. I don't want to get anybody upset, but to find one that captures the morality that you can often find in certain classical works, Les Miserables, which is a very, very large book, but has a tremendous amount of mussar in it. So I was actually teaching in the beginners program in Or Sameach, and one of the guys asked me, "What's your favorite book?" And I said, I would have to say Watership Down. It's a lot of fun, and you can read it over and over again, and it's just great. Now, you have to get over the fact that it's about rabbits. If you can get over the fact that it's about rabbits, you can get through the first two chapters. It's unbelievable. But it's such mussar about how these rabbits have to survive. Obviously, you're looking at the world from a rabbit's point of view. But it's so interesting because the chief rabbit is not the strongest. He's not the smartest. He's not. His koyach is finding everybody else's koyches and helping them develop them. That's the brilliance of it. And he also believes in redemption, and even people who got messed up, he brings them back. Tremendous amount of mussar. Anyway, this is what I said. I said, Watership Down. 6 months later, because, in the intro program, there's always people coming and going. Another guy asked me, what's your favorite book? And I said, again, Watership Down. And there was a guy who said, I was here 6 months ago. I went back to America. And I took out the book and I read it. And you're right. It is one of the best books that were ever written. That's my own personal idea. Yeah, there are other books that I enjoy, etc. But if I had to pick one book to, I used to read it to my children when they were little at bedtime. It's I think the values and the story itself, as my children say, harbe metach. There's a lot of suspense, excitement. All right, and the last one for this podcast. When are you going to publish the book you wrote that you haven't published yet? Can you please do it soon? Ugh, it's a quandary. I wrote this book and it's over 25 years ago that I wrote it. It was supposed to be a book for Jews who don't want to read a book about Judaism. It's a humorous introduction to Judaism. I have a chapter on the holidays, I have a chapter on the Jewish life cycle, chapter on Jewish history, and it's laugh out loud funny. I want people to buy the book, not because it's a Jewish book, but because it's a funny book. But in order to do that, I have to market it to the audience. This is not a book for Eichels, you understand? This is a book for, to get out there, and I'm not sure how to do it. That's my difficulty. I don't know how to get out there. My friend Nachum Amzel, who's one of the leading Marbitze Torah, told me an amazing story. He says a guy found a cookbook from the Revolutionary era, and he republished it. I don't know, he made like 500 copies or something, just for fun. Anyway, the New York Times did an article on it, and he gets a call for Barnes and Nobles. They won 10,000 books. 10,000 books, that's a major undertaking. So he went out and took out loans, and he published 10,000 of these cookbooks from the Revolutionary era and gave them to Barnes and Nobles. And 6 months later, they gave him back 9,800 books. Didn't sell. But when you give it, you sell it on consignment. So he says, everybody thinks they have a book that everyone's going to buy. I was working on a book that I thought would be more successful. It's called Harry Potter Book 8. I think that might sell. But there might be copyright issues. I'm not sure. But it's really halachic work. It's in English, it looks like Harry Potter, but I really mean Harry Potter. If you do this, Harry Potter. So you're exempt. But I don't know if that'll pass muster in the court of law. But anyway, that's the idea. So if I can figure out how to find a major publisher to take me out for lunch and offer me a book deal with movie rights, then I will definitely put it out. But if I'm going to photostat it and sell it out of the trunk of my car, I find that less appealing. So as is often the case, I become decision impaired. This is why when I was the lawyer director of NCSY, my assistant director was Joe Werfel of Shalom, who was a very famous individual in the field of chinuch. He worked in many, many different institutions, and he was just one of the finest technical people I ever met. And he would see when I would get like this, I'd get frozen on a decision. Then he would just make it, and I would say to him afterwards, "Why'd you do that?" He says, "Because you weren't deciding." So I said, "Yeah, but, and he said, "I've noticed it's easier for you to criticize me than it is for you to actually do anything." And it was so interesting because when I used to work in Yeshiva or Dovid, so Rabbi Flam would ask me to write a letter for this or for that, and fundraising, whatever it was, and I would say, "Yeah, I'll get to it." So he would write a letter, and he says, "Okay, this is what I'm going to send out." I'd be like, "No, this is terrible," and I would rewrite the whole thing. He did this to me a bunch of times, and finally I asked him, "Why don't you just have me write the letter?" He goes, "Because you won't. You're much better at criticizing what other people do than actually doing something on your own." So anyway, so I'm waiting for the book deal. So Bantam, all the publishing houses out there, I am available. All right, that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com, where you can leave a comment, you can send an email, you can sponsor an episode, you can listen to the Rabbi Orlofsky show theme song, you can listen to the song that my son wrote in honor of my wife's birthday, which I've gotten some feedback from people who did, and said that they found it very moving, and it is very moving. And, leave a comment, do whatever you want. There's plenty to do. There's so much fun. There's articles, there's things for the kids, there's, projects. I'm just kidding. There's none of those things. But anyway, in any event, that's it for this show. This is Dovid Orlofsky, and this has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.